Kansas City Sports Update Studios. Welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Chris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, CastBox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom.
How are we doing, Chiefs Kingdom? It is Wednesday, August 21st. Welcome to Kingdom Radio. I am your host, Richard Smith, and as always, I have Kris-Chavez, our senior NFL analyst with us tonight. How are we doing tonight, Chris?
Doing fantastic.
Good deal. Well, we're going to get right into some Chiefs news tonight because, there has been quite a lot of signings, injuries, releases that we need to update Chiefs Kingdom on here this evening. And first, I think I'd like to start out with DeAnthony Thomas. The Chiefs re-signed him. What was that, yesterday, Chris?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Okay, so give Chiefs Kingdom a little bit of information on this DeAnthony Thomas signing and what impact it'll have on the Chiefs and why you think we went ahead and signed him to a contract.
The signing of DeAnthony Thomas was kind of a reactionary move.
Yes.
I don't think it was anything that had actually been planned or in the works for a while.
Right.
We due to Kemp tearing his ACL and MCL in the game against Pittsburgh, we lost our special teams. I won't call him ace, but he's basically an ace. He was a do-all in special teams, and he was really coming along as a wide receiver. And I have a feeling that he was probably penciled in as the number 5 wide receiver. And so losing him for the season really hurt us, not so much in the wide receiving department. We've got a lot of capable wide receivers on the roster, but I don't think that we've really seen the special teams ability that we need from that wide receiver position, which is why we went out and got DeAnthony Thomas, who has been fantastic on special teams for us.
Yes.
Over the last couple of years.
And here's the thing with Thomas is he was injured last season when he refractured his tibia during practice. And, that was last October. But here was kind of the kicker with Thomas is he had those charges pending on him in Allen County, and those charges got deferred, but the Chiefs didn't even really make a move on Thomas until those charges got deferred. But it absolutely was a reactionary move. I was surprised to see it, but at the same time, obviously, I understand. But I want to kind of elaborate on something that Dave Toub said about DeAnthony Thomas, and I'm quoting him on this. He's not just a returner. He's a cover guy. He's a gunner. He's good on kickoff. He can block, and he's not afraid to stick his hands in there. And then another thing that Toub continued to say about Thomas is that pound for pound, last season, he was the toughest player on the team. So it's nice to, get him back in the lineup here, losing Kemp the way that we did. That's an unfortunate injury, and I know none of us in Chiefs Kingdom wanted to see that. But, we have to move on. There's a full season ahead of us, and, it's really not a big shocker to go into another season without Kemp. So the DeAnthony Thomas move, yes, reactionary. Good move for Kansas City, yes, because he is going to be another piece of that Dave Toub special teams scenario. It just hurts to see it happen the way that it did. So is there anything else you'd like to touch on with DeAnthony Thomas, Chris?
Just one other thing, because this is starting to catch a lot of traction, this Legion of Zoom. DeAnthony Thomas is going to add another little flavor to that,
right?
With blazing speed.
Yes, and and that's funny is because I do look for him to possibly be thrown in that slot position or be, thrown out there on a 4-wide set, and this could be a season, like Connolly had. And that Connolly release now hurt us a little bit. I mean, not really. We couldn't afford him, but I'd sure like to have Connolly back in place of DeAnthony Thomas. But I think that, hey, this could be Thomas's year if he really does what he should. So that speed is very valuable to Kansas City for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about a 5-wide receiver set with Hill, with Watkins, with Robinson, with Hardman, and with DeAnthony Thomas all on the field.
Holy cow. And, how can you cover that? Any defense in the league, how can you cover, a 5-receiver set like that? We should be spreading the field, every play. And even if it's not DeAnthony Thomas spread out there, think about Darwin Thompson out there. I mean, our boundaries are limitless when it comes to this offense.
And throw Kelsey in there as well. It's going to be fantastic being able to create mismatches in this offense. It's going to be incredible.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And unfortunately, we will be doing it without Marcus Kemp, who, like we said, is out for the season with the ACL and MCL tear. We look for him to probably get under the needle and have some surgery here soon. Best of luck to you. We'd love to have you back. We're not really quite sure now what your future is with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's been a pretty rocky road with you, so we'll have to see what happens. And with that being said, let's turn the corner here and let's talk about Devon Grayson or Davin Grayson. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his first name. He was a wide receiver that was waived by the Kansas City Chiefs, and he had an injured knee on top of that. And he suited up in 2 games for the Chiefs as a rookie, and then he was injured in this first preseason game, and the Chiefs just decided to go in another direction. So do you think this is an injury-based release, or would you say that overall we just don't have time to try to progress this player once he comes back?
A little bit of both. I think that they just didn't really see enough from him to warrant keeping him on the roster.
Right.
And again, it wasn't necessarily related to it, but it kind of happened at the same time. But we also brought in Jalen Tolliver, who, we could have kept Grayson on with Kemp going on the injured reserve list.
Mm-hmm.
We could have just signed DeAnthony Thomas, and it would have squared us off at the 90-man roster.
Right.
But that we cut him and brought in Jalen Tolliver says that we were looking at Jalen Tolliver as an upgrade over Grayson just to see what we can potentially get from him on the roster, and that we weren't liking what we were seeing in Grayson.
Here's my thing about this, though, is, I don't mind going in the opposite direction away from this player because he's obviously, has an injury problem and he really hasn't done much as far as production for the Chiefs. But I look at the, just Jalen Tolliver, and, he's a free agent from Arizona, or we traded whatever we had to do to get him. But there's not really much to talk about with him as well. He had 1 season with Arizona and 3 receptions for 37 yards. So we're talking about 2 players here who obviously are not proven, but this is just depth for Kansas City. This is kind of a backup plan for, what if our slot receiver goes down, or our 4th or 5th receiver. I mean, we're talking way into the depth here. So I don't really look at this as it's newsworthy for our depth, but this man's not going to see very much of the field for the Kansas City Chiefs this season.
Yeah, I think that Tolliver is running a very, very deep wide receiving group.
Yes.
And it's really just to see, where does he compare? I think the one thing that he brings that we lost with Kemp is size. He's 6'3", 210 pounds, which is around about close to the size of Kemp. But that's really the only similarity. But giving him his due, when Arizona brought him in last year, he was an undrafted free agent, and as an undrafted free agent, he was able to eventually see the field that last game of the season to get those 3 catches. So I mean that's a pretty good journey on his part, and I think that Veach was that he was available. I think Veach was just trying to bring him in and compare him to what we have on our team already to see where he's going to be. I don't think that he ends up making the roster. He might end up being a practice squad guy potentially.
Mm-hmm.
If we lose a couple guys to some other teams and we kind of like what we see from him, then we keep him on the practice squad. But I don't think he's going to be a major contributor. He's got 2 weeks to learn this very complicated offense. I just don't see it working out with him.
And I don't either. And, this is another reactionary move, just like you were talking about with DeAnthony Thomas. I mean, this is something that had to happen because we had a piece to the puzzle that wasn't holding his weight. I hope Tolliver can come in and make some noise. That'd be cool. Let's get a little more competition there in the depth. That can never hurt. And look, I want to touch base on, in my mind, the biggest question mark player on our team. And now, yes, we have some question marks at cornerback, and we have question marks in the tight end position and some in the linebacker. I feel like the linebacking questions will be toned down a little bit as the season starts and we see how good our defense is. But Tremon Smith is the biggest question mark to me on our roster right now. I'm not sure what Andy Reid's got going on with Smith, because now Smith is working with the wide receivers. They just put him on the roster as a running back, and before that, he was our cornerback and also does some special teams returning for us as well. Now, my question is, and I think a lot of us in Chiefs Kingdom, want to know this, is does Andy Reid just really like this guy and want to give him any opportunity that he can to keep him on the roster? Or are we trying to get as much value out of Smith to turn around and try to dish him off to another team? Because this is a lot of moving around for one player who hasn't been in the organization, too long. And I've never seen a player be bounced around on a roster like Tremon Smith has in the last month. Do you know what's going on with that, Chris? Do you kind of have an idea of what's going on with Tremon Smith? Why is this guy being bounced around as much as he is? And is there a future for him in Kansas City?
It's really hard to tell. I think that they're just when they moved him to running back, I think from what I've heard, the plan was to move him to wide receiver at first.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because of the injuries to I think it was Darrell Williams, and I think at the time Hyde was out for a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to give him some work at running back, which will give him some skill at wide receiver when he gets into the open field.
Right.
Being able to have that vision and see what's in front of him and, the juke moves and whatnot. But I think that moving him to wide receiver here with 2 weeks before season, it just screams desperation to try to find a place where he can potentially have some potential. And he's probably going to end up being a practice squad guy. If somebody else doesn't come in and claim him, they could easily move him back to his natural position at cornerback, or maybe they see something here in the next game or two that they like with him at wide receiver, and maybe put him on their practice squad and try to develop him over the next year or so.
Right, and I guess what confuses me the most about this scenario is when we moved Smith from the defensive backfield, to the running back core, we were already shorthanded, on cornerbacks, and we still are. Even with going out and getting Morris Claiborne, we're still shorthanded. So that was my huge question mark, is why are we pulling this man off of a part of our team that has some serious questions? Then we put him on another part of our team that has some serious questions. Then we move him from there and then put him into the most established core of our entire team, which is our receivers. I guess I don't understand what's going on in the front office and what their thoughts are with this, because the moves just don't make any sense.
Yeah, I really have to agree. And kind of like you had touched on earlier, I really think that Andy-Reid just really likes him and is trying to find a way to keep him on this team and keep him around. I don't see him having any real trade value unless somebody really wants a speedy cornerback who hasn't worked at cornerback all offseason. Which, I mean, there's a demand for cornerbacks all throughout the league. And I think that had he stayed at cornerback, there was a chance that he could have had some value there. But having worked at running back and now wide receiver, I don't see there being a whole lot of value there. So I think that this is a move that they're trying to make work for him just because of his athleticism,
right,
and his vision that he has. But I definitely think that it's going to take more than just 2 weeks to get him ready for a roster position at wide receiver. This screams practice squad for me.
And I would have to agree with you. And I have to be, frank about this whole thing with Smith. If I'm a GM of another team right now, and I'm looking and I'm following Tremon Smith and what's going on with him and his movement on our roster, I don't want to touch him with a 10-foot pole. He has no stock and no value right now. Every time they move him to another position, his value and his stock drops unless they find the perfect spot for him and he flourishes. But I guess my thing is it's absolutely impossible for him to flourish in our wide receiving core. Like that is you might as well throw a middle school football athlete on there in our wide receiving core and be like, hey, good luck. And not to discredit him, but everybody else on our roster is so good and so well-rounded and polished. He don't have a chance in the wide receiver core.
Yeah, it's pretty irrelevant at this point that he's trying out at wide receiver.
Do you think that he'll stay on special teams? Because that's the only thing that's going to keep him off the practice squad.
To be perfectly honest, I don't see him making the roster now. With the quality that we have at wide receiver,
right?
Unless he comes out in the next 2 games and really lights it up, which I honestly think that the switch to wide receiver makes more sense. Because it's more of a mirror position from the cornerback position.
Right.
But he has to really outshine a lot of guys. Because right now there's probably about 3 wide receivers who are looking at that 6th wide receiver position on the roster and drooling. And Tremon Smith is just now starting his journey for that.
Right. And, and it could be a little too late here. There's just lots of reasons to, look like we're closing the door on Tremon Smith here, and I wish him the best, but it looks like he's going to be practice squad guy and eventually somebody that we'll move on from. There's no future in Tremon Smith and the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think that's where I'm going to leave it there. So let's talk about the moves on the offensive line. Kind of start us out there. We the Chiefs re-signed Jeff Allen. He's had a few years with the Chiefs. He started 40 games and played in 54. And I think the Chiefs were less impressed with Beachum, and that's why they let him go and brought Allen back. But touch base on that. What's your thoughts on us re-signing Jeff Allen and essentially releasing Beachum?
Yeah, I think, having watched the 2 games, Beachum in the second and third offensive line was the guy who really looked like a weak link. Mm-hmm. And he not necessarily always letting guys blow by him, but he had a false start. He had some misreads, and he got beat a couple times. So I don't have any problems whatsoever with him being let go. Bringing Jeff Allen in, he's a quality depth guy who can play all 3 positions across the offensive line for us.
Right.
He can play center, guard, tackle if he needs to. And they're trying to work in Cam Irving to be that swing backup having Jeff Allen back there is going to make that a little bit easier, because it kind of seems like Irving was having some problems at tackle a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he just needs some more experience there at tackle to solidify that. I'm really excited about bringing Jeff Allen back. I think that's going to be a tremendous signing for us down the season. We're going to really look back and say that was a good move.
And Chris, me and we agree on our perspectives mostly, and this one I'm a big yes with you on this one. I think Chiefs Kingdom is really going to look back on this, and yes, you're right. They're going to realize what big impact that he has on our offensive line. And I do want to state one more thing here. He played for Kansas City from 2012 to 2015, and then was traded to the Texans in 2016 and 17. And then came back to the Chiefs, briefly 2018. What I want to ask you is, do you think that the Chiefs let Allen go over cap issues, let him go get paid with the Texans for a few years, and brought him back on a smaller deal because he's a little bit further up in his age? Do you think that might have been a scenario there? You think we got him cheaper than if we would have signed him to a long-term deal and kept him on the Chiefs for the 2016-2017 season?
I think that he was stuck behind a logjam at guard.
Right.
And there was really no way for him to really step in and start.
Mm-hmm.
And so letting him go, if we were to re-sign him, we'd have to pay him starter money. And it wouldn't make sense for a guy that we're really seeing as a backup. And so
right.
We let him go and give him the chance to start somewhere, which ended up being Houston. And, for whatever reason, it didn't work out there. And then he came back, and I think he kind of saw the writing on the wall and realized that he's just going to be a backup. And it kind of made more sense for him to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to be a backup. I'm going to take backup money.
Right. And also let's look at this scenario as well. From an offensive lineman standpoint, and especially one who, was with the Kansas City Chiefs through the Alex Smith era, he experienced a lot of success. He went to the Texans and experienced some success. This is a hungry Jeff Allen for a Super Bowl and a point in his career where, let's be honest, this is a make or break time for him as far as the what his overall legacy is going to be in the NFL, and I feel like that it couldn't turn out any better for him than to come back to the Kansas City Chiefs at this point and potentially finish his career with the Chiefs.
And with a Super Bowl ring as well.
Exactly, and that's a big thing. Like, come get your Super Bowl ring, guy. You have deserved it. He really is. I mean, it was not fair, him being the backup in Kansas City, in the guard position, go to the Texans, come back. Now he knows his role, and this is a lot bigger for the Kansas City Chiefs than a lot of people understand in Chiefs Kingdom. I know this is the offensive line, but this is huge because when we get down the stretch and we get into the last 4 weeks of the season in the playoffs, we're going to need this guy. And he is the type of guy that has stepped up for every team that he's been on when his time has been called. So I look for this, like I said, to be a great thing for Kansas City. And with that being said, we're going to move on from the offensive line talk, and we are going to go into our next segment.
This is the No Look Pass, brought to you by Sean and Keogh Music Solutions, providing everything from simple background audio to complex creative audio pieces. Bring your project to life with Sean and Keogh Music Solutions.
All right, this is the No Look Pass brought to you by Sean and Keogh Music Solutions. This is the segment where Chris and I pick each other's brains of football knowledge to see just where our knowledge is off the top of our head. So, Chris, I'm going to start it off tonight. I'm going to give you your No Look Pass. And this is a hypothetical question. Usually I come with trivia, but I'm coming with a hypothetical to you this time. If you were Spags, the defensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, what would you say to his defense going into this season with their backs being up against the wall like they are, with how much we have rebuilt the defense? What would you say to that team right now?
Define yourselves, because right now we're basically starting from scratch, and the NFL is basing their opinions of you on last year. And you guys are a whole new team, a whole new squad, but we are a new team. And we need to go out there and we need to define who we are as a defense. And we need to turn these NFL experts, we need to turn their heads and make them redefine what they think of us, because what we're hearing and what we're seeing in the media is not who we are. It's not who we've been practicing to be. It's not our character.
Right.
And we need to set this up right, and we need to go out and get that Super Bowl.
Yes. Okay. And I would like to say, I loved everything that you said. And you know, that's a GM mindset. You know, what if I was Spags and I had to address our defense, I would tell our defense this right here. I would say, look, there is a lot of hype around the Kansas City Chiefs. Now there's starting to be some hype for our defense. All I would say to that defense, ride off the hype from the offense and live up to that hype. You live up to that hype, and each one of you individually does your jobs like you're supposed to. We will win a Super Bowl. We will win the Lombardi Trophy if you 12 guys, however many guys there are, if all of you do your part, we will succeed. And that's basically what it boils down to. I think it's one of those things that when you bring a man like Spags on this team, he has a new aura on this defense. Spags is an Andy-Reid for a defense, high energy level. This is a whole new defense, Chiefs Kingdom. It's going to be a lot of fun. Trust the process and trust the system. But it's about time to get hype in Kansas City. This season is going to be amazing. And there's a reason why I asked, what, Chris would say if he was Spags to the defense. Because I want everybody to know just how much we believe in our defense. And that's a good way to tell. So, Chris, I want to ask you, what's your no-look pass to me this evening?
Okay, so I have something else planned, but based on your question, it's making me pull up this one that I was actually saving for a couple of weeks from now. So which do you think happens first? Mm-hmm. The Chiefs score 50 points, or the Chiefs hold a team to 3 points or less?
Wow, that's a great question. Boy, I'd have to still go with the 50. I have faith in our defense that we can shut some teams out. But I've seen what Mahomes can do. We all have seen what Mahomes can do, and that offense that just got better. As a fan of Chiefs Kingdom, we always hit a plateau with our offense. It was decent, but we never got over decent. Now we're excellent, top tier, and we got better. We were already top tier. Do we have a top tier defense? Possibly. It's the same as last season. Question marks on the offense. We had to see it. I want to see it from the defense before I can claim their fame, because we have the MVP of the league on our offense. And as much as I believe in our defense, well, our best defense is Patrick-Mahomes. So that's kind of how I feel about that. But what about you? I want to hear you.
So kind of looking at our schedule and who we've got coming up to start the season off with, we got So I'm going to be a little long-winded here because I just kind of want to explain like how I'm looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
So we start with Jacksonville, who's got a really good defense. I think that they'll keep us under 50. Going up against the Raiders, it kind of just depends on who they show up as.
Right.
Playing at Oakland, I think it's going to be pretty hard for us to keep them from scoring. I think we could potentially put up 50 against them. And then if it doesn't happen there, you look a couple weeks later at Detroit. I could see us holding Detroit to under 3. So I think I have to go with the 50 points first against the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't happen there, I think we get our 3 points or less against Detroit.
And Detroit is definitely a great target, to hold out of the end zone throughout an entirety of a game. And that's a tough thing to do in the NFL. That's not easy to shut a team out or keep them off the board, out of the end zone, excuse me. But yeah, you could be right about that. I feel like that with our schedule and, all the aspects you pointed out here, that's legitimately a possibility for the Kansas City Chiefs this season. So, with that being said, Kansas City, that was our no-look pass. We're going to move on to our final segment here, and we're going to talk about the MVPs for the Kansas City Chiefs through the first 2 games of preseason. And now I know all of you in Kansas City are saying, well, it's just preseason. Yes, I understand it's just preseason, but let me tell you this. If you're not excited about what you've seen in preseason, I don't know what to tell you. Even when our offense stuttered, there was exciting things to see on the defense. So there's a lot of depth that we really, really need to keep an eye on, and there's a lot of great depth for the Kansas City Chiefs that we can't even overlook. So, Chris, I'm going to let you start off with our MVPs throughout the first 2 games. Who do you have?
So on offense, I'm going to go with Darwin Thompson.
Yes.
He's been an incredible find. He's leading all of our rushers. He's stepping up in the pass protection game. If you guys haven't seen it or watched him on a pass play where he's in, watch him step up and lay some wood on some of these blitzers. In the very first game against Cincinnati, he absolutely decleated a guy. It was fantastic. And then his running ability, how tough he is. I mean, you have to take into consideration how tiny he is.
Right.
But he's sitting there running through 2 3-man tackles and still getting yardage, still falling forward. And through 2 games, and again, it's only been 2 games, he hasn't fumbled yet.
Huge deal, Kansas City. Huge deal. We already saw Carlos Hyde put the ball on the ground. So we're talking about a rookie here who's not fumbled one time and been nothing but extremely productive throughout the first 2 games of this preseason. I could not agree more with you about Darwin Thompson.
Yeah, and a very close second is McCole Hardman.
Yes.
He's been doing fantastic. He's scored in both games. He's catching a lot of balls. He's running really fast. He's looking incredible.
Right. He really is. I mean, that end around that he took in for a touchdown, he's caught some nice balls. And he's had 2 or 3 touchdowns now here in the preseason. So since you stole one of my MVPs, I'm going to do the defense.
Okay, go for it.
So on the defensive side of the ball, this is going to surprise a lot of people. My number 1 MVP on the defensive side of the ball thus far is Herb Miller. I like what I've seen out of Juan Thornhill. I like what I've seen out of K-Pass. Obviously, we saw Okafor get a sack, and there's been some production. But I haven't seen anybody make plays on the defense consistently like we saw Herb Miller make in this last game against Pittsburgh. And forced fumble, deflection. I believe a deflection turned into an interception or something along those natures. Tackles, incomplete passes, balls batted down. I mean, this man was has been an absolute beast. So what would you say? I don't know if you would agree with me that Herb is, number one. I'm sure you have him on your list, but let's hear your number one on the defense.
Yeah, I definitely had Herb Miller in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
He's not my number one. I mean, he has some issues with the underneath game,
mm-hmm.
but he makes some big plays, and he definitely doesn't back down. And he definitely has impressed me, because coming in, I didn't have him in the top 4 at cornerback.
I probably didn't even have him on the roster coming in, to be perfectly honest with you. Then that's why I really have honed in on him so much, is because he's such a big surprise. There were pretty decent hopes for Thompson, but I feel like both of them, for how deep they were taken. I mean, Herb Miller wasn't even drafted, so how deep they were taken, I feel like they deserve a lot of credit. There's not too many Herb Millers out there that's going to come in that scenario and do what that man does with his back up against the wall like it has been.
Yeah, no, he's been fantastic, given the opportunities that he's had.
Yes, and that's all Andy Reid wants, and he says that all the time. Take advantage of your opportunities. You get out there on the field, make the best of it, and we've got a man in Herb Miller who's living up to that, and he's gonna earn a spot on our defense for sure. We might even see this man sometime be the nickel, cornerback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see him definitely step in there if Kendall Fuller ends up stepping outside. Or if he ends up stepping off because he needs a break, or he's out injured or something.
Right. Now, okay, so we've talked a lot about Herb Miller. I know your guy's K-Pass, but I still don't think K-Pass is your number one. Who's your number one on your list?
So, you read me so well. K-Pass is probably my runner-up.
And then Thornhill.
It's not even like 1B. 1A, I actually have to go with Darren Lee.
Ooh, nice pick, dude. That's a quiet, solid pick. A lot of people are going to overlook Darren Lee. I love that, dude. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, against Cincinnati, he was making plays, and even though he wasn't necessarily getting the stats or getting in the stat book by making the tackle every single time,
mm-hmm.
he was around the ball.
Yeah.
He was around the guy who had the ball, and his speed was allowing him to be in position to make the plays.
Correct.
And especially the second game, I mean, he was batting the ball around. We saw a little bit more of him in the passing game. And I want to say he's probably been the most consistent linebacker that we've had. I mean, granted, like our starters aren't really seeing the field a whole lot. But of our depth players, I've seen the most out of him, and he's really impressed me. I think that with what he's shown, and if he continues mid-season, there's a chance he could potentially earn a starting spot.
I think he's going to play a big role in, our passing packages, because, one thing that I know about Darren Lee, he's speed, and obviously speed kills, and that's something we've honed in on here in Chiefs Kingdom. But he's extremely intelligent, and he has a lot of speed. So, of course, he's going to be great against the pass. But I think, in turn, with all of the talent around him, his game against the run is going to step up substantially. And then if that happens, then his pass rush is going to step up. So I think this is going to be, kind of a domino effect here for Darren Lee. And we're going to hear a lot more about him throughout the season. So I'm really glad that you honed in there on Darren Lee, because that's an exciting scenario to this Chiefs defense that a lot of fans are overlooking, because they may say that we don't have a lot of talent at linebacker, but we do, and we do have some depth. So keep your eye out on for Darren Lee. We had touched base on K-Pass. Thornhill's looked great as well. Like we said, we need to see some more out of him. I still don't see him earning that one spot until the end of preseason, but it's coming. Do you think it's coming?
I think so. I think it's a little bit later than end of preseason.
Okay.
But I think probably 2 or 3 games into the season is probably when I would see him making that move.
And I hope so. And, that's one of those things that, and we touch base on this, about the depth of, the offense. It's the same, and I'm talking about the playbook, the depth of the playbook. It's the same on the defense. There's a lot to learn. It's hard to come into a Steve Spagnuolo system, or Steve Spagnuolo, and then also be a rookie with a system that is completely changed and step in there and have immediate impact. There's definitely going to be a learning curve there, and that's what Thornhill is going through right now. But he couldn't be in a better position being able to shadow a player like the Honey Badger. And I'm going to take the words out of Honey Badger's mouth. He told Thornhill to just be himself. So I feel like that's what Thornhill is working on, finding his identity in this defense and being himself. And once that's honed in, oh my gosh, it is going to be a powerful machine.
Yeah, absolutely. Once he gets comfortable back there, it's going to be a terrible twosome back at safety, and offenses are going to be scared.
Yes, and they already have a reason to be scared, and even if they don't understand it. But look, this is the NFL, and all of these players, in one way, shape, or form, have seen the other ones at some point in their career, if they're veterans. And I'm sure these guys around the NFL know exactly what the Kansas City Chiefs have. There's players who have been going on social media saying, I feel sorry for anybody who plays the Kansas City Chiefs this season, and there's a reason for it. I don't think we quite understand just how amazing this is going to be. We haven't got to see anything in full throttle. We haven't seen any full playbooks, anything at all. So there's a lot to look forward to there, Kansas City. So look, that is our MVPs through the first 2 games. There's quite a few of them, and I feel like that's a great deal for the Chiefs moving forward into this 2019 season. So, okay, Kansas City, I want to give some shout-outs here. First off, I'd like to thank my co-host, Kris-Chavez. He's an amazing analyst. He brings a lot to the table. He does a lot behind the scenes. I could not be happier about the partnership that me and him have built, and I feel like it's important that I give people credit who have given so much to me that people, nobody sees the behind the scenes with Kingdom Radio. And there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of depth to this. This isn't just me and Chris hopping, on a podcast and talking about Chiefs. It's a business. There's a deep business aspect to this. And Chris, I couldn't thank you enough for everything that you've done for Kingdom Radio.
I couldn't thank you any more or any bigger for giving me the opportunity to contribute, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it takes a special skill to hop on here and talk Chiefs the way you do. You're a middle school teacher in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you deserve all the respect that a Chiefs fan could receive. Also, look, I'd like to thank Dylan Humphreys and Arrowhead Update for all the networking. These guys are incredible. There's a team of them running the Arrowhead Update. And I couldn't ask for a better platform to be a part of and a better partner in the scheme of things. I'd also like to thank J and D parking lot crews there at Arrowhead. Look, y'all are amazing. I love coming out to tailgate and J and D parking lot, and I will be there this Saturday in J parking lot, and we're going to do the Kingdom Radio live out there, and I look forward to that. D parking lot, I love y'all as well. I always have an amazing time with y'all, and I couldn't thank you enough. It's because of the fans that all this is possible. Sean Utley, I couldn't thank you enough, owner of Sean Akio Music Solutions. He is the guy who does all of my premier audio content, all my digital audio, the intro that you hear, the outro that you hear, and his advertisement that runs for the No Look Pass. He's incredible. He rocks this stuff out, and I couldn't be more thankful for Sean. I really appreciate it. Last but not least, Leo Core Digital. Look, that's my networking crew, Michael Voss and Wayne Bush. Look, you guys are incredible. You're doing some big things here for Kingdom Radio that nobody's seen but me. I mean, the logos are coming together. The web pages are coming together. We're going to start looking for sponsorships. This is a huge deal for Kingdom Radio. And I want everybody to understand that this takes a village to build a dream. And we absolutely have billionaire mindsets in our circle. And this is just the beginning. Kansas City, this is a community-based podcast, radio show, platform, whatever we end up being in the grand scheme of things. This is for the community. This is for Chiefs Kingdom. We want to give back. We also, want to support our local businesses. This is a big deal for us. And look, Chiefs Kingdom, here soon we will have merchandise that you all will be able to buy for Kingdom Radio. Also, we're going to be taking donations, sponsorships. Look, Chiefs Kingdom, we really need as much help as we can get to get funding together to make this as big as possible, to be able to give back to the community and partner up with these businesses here in Kansas City. So, just keep in mind, we've got to be a team to make all this work, and I couldn't be more thankful for all of you in Chiefs Kingdom. I really, really enjoy doing this, and I look forward to our future relations. And look, we're a family here in Chiefs Kingdom, and I want us to act like it. And we're doing this for you. So please give back to us. I want you all to know, look, we don't make any money off of this. I haven't made a dime off of this in a year and a half. I would really appreciate some support. We'll probably have some type of funding set up. So please get involved. Help us out. Subscribe. Like. Comment. All those things really help. Leave reviews. We have a big show here and a great following, and we would love some support from you. So Kansas City, you have a great evening. That's all I want to say. But thank you from the bottom of my heart, because none of this will be possible without Chiefs Kingdom.